I was 27, engaged to the love of my life, and completely blind to the viper living under the same roof as me. My sister Claire, we weren't always like that. Growing up, we were close. She used to braid my hair, sneak me snacks during Mom's silent treatment days, and swear we'd always have each other's backs. But somewhere along the line, that shifted. She got prettier, sharper, and way more dangerous with a fake smile than anyone gave her credit for. Still, I trusted her. Maybe that was my biggest mistake. When I met Daniel, everything changed. He wasn't just rich, he was grounded, generous, and genuinely kind. A self-made tech entrepreneur who still made time to call his mom every Sunday. The kind of guy who held open doors and listened when you talked. My unicorn. And Claire? She acted thrilled. OMG, you're glowing. She'd squeal. You guys are perfect together. But then I'd catch her watching him, just a second too long, laughing a little too hard at his jokes, showing up at his office by accident. Once, she even wore a nearly identical dress to mine for our engagement dinner. I brushed it off, because Claire would never. Right? Wrong. 3 weeks before our wedding, Daniel came home looking off, pale, sweaty. He sat me down and said the words that cracked my spine in half. I cheated with Claire. I'm sorry. At first, I thought he was joking. Then I saw the shame in his eyes. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked out, like my soul left before my body did. Claire didn't even have the decency to deny it. She just shrugged when I confronted her. He picked me, she said. Why fight it? Like we were two girls fighting over a handbag. Like our bond, our blood, meant absolutely nothing. They got married a year later. I disappeared, moved across the country, changed my number, deleted every photo that had either of them in it. I rebuilt myself from the dirt up. Therapy, hustle, silence. I started my own interior design firm. I traveled. I let myself imagine love again, slowly. And then, I met Elijah. He wasn't flashy like Daniel, but he was steady, safe, funny in a dry, clever way. He never once made me feel like I had to compete with anyone else in the room. We got married in a small garden ceremony with 30 people and zero drama. Claire didn't even know. 6 years passed, and then Mom died. Suddenly. Stroke. It felt cruel how death forces you into rooms with people who once set fire to your soul. But I went because I had to, because she was my mother, even if she never stood up for me when Claire broke me. The funeral was simple. Black suits, white lilies, cold glances. I stood beside Elijah, holding his hand tight, watching faces blur past, until hers appeared. Claire, she looked good, of course she did. Polished, put together, like a magazine ad for regretless living. But when her eyes landed on Elijah, she froze, full on, dead in her heels froze, and that's when I knew. She didn't recognize him, but she wanted to. Would you believe me if I told you that's when my plan started? Not out of rage, not out of heartbreak, out of clarity. Because for the first time in 6 years, I had the power, and she had no clue. Claire stood there for a solid 10 seconds, her eyes flicking between me and Elijah like she was trying to solve a damn puzzle. She tilted her head, gave me that old sugary smile. You look amazing, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. And who's this? I knew that tone. Too sweet, too rehearsed. She didn't remember him, but her gut told her he was someone she should remember. This is Elijah, I said casually, squeezing his hand. My husband. Her eyes twitched, just for a second. And I knew she felt it, that thing you feel when you realize a prize might have slipped through your fingers before you even noticed it was on the table. After the funeral, we all went to Mom's house. It felt like walking into a museum of unresolved trauma. Same heavy furniture, same dusty framed photos, same kitchen Claire used to sneak into at night when she thought I was asleep, stealing food Mom said was only for guests. She was still good at slipping into a room and making herself the center of it. Elijah went to check on something with the lawyer, and in less than 2 minutes, Claire was beside me with a wine glass in her hand, giving me that sister look. So, Elijah, she said, drawing out the syllables like she was tasting them. I gave her a blank look. What about him? He's different, she said slowly. Where did you two meet? The funny thing is, she was pretending to be casual, but her eyes were scanning every detail: his watch, his shoes, The way he pulled out my chair at the kitchen table. She was assessing value. She always did that. Elijah's a structural engineer, I said, sipping my water. We met at a design expo in Denver. He's humble, kind, loyal. I said that last word a little slower than necessary. Her nostrils flared for just a moment. Then, she laughed. Good for you. After Daniel. I imagine anything feels like an upgrade. I tilted my head. I wouldn't know. I've never been second choice. That wiped the smile right off her face. Later that night, Elijah pulled me aside. Your sister's intense, he said with a smirk. I rolled my eyes. You have no idea. She cornered me in the hallway, he added. Said I looked familiar. Asked if I ever worked in tech. I stiffened. What did you say? Told her I used to consult for startups in San Francisco before switching to engineering projects full-time. Her face must have nearly cracked, because, yes, Elijah had consulted for one of Daniel's biggest competitors. He just hated the culture, so he bailed early. She was trying to figure out who he was, and maybe deep down who he could have been to her. A few days later, Mom's will was read. No big surprises. The house was being sold. A few family heirlooms were designated, but Mom had quietly set aside a significant sum in a trust fund. I didn't know about for the daughter who stayed loyal. Claire's jaw actually dropped. I thought she was broke. She hissed at me later. I shrugged. Maybe she just knew where to invest. She didn't say it out loud, but I saw it in her eyes. She thought I didn't deserve that money. Just like she thought she deserved Daniel. She couldn't stand the idea that I'd rebuilt my life without her, without Daniel, and somehow landed on top. 2 weeks after we flew home, I got a friend request from her on Instagram, and then a DM. Hey, it was really nice seeing you again. Elijah seems amazing. You two look so happy. We should plan a girls' weekend sometime, just us. Like old times. I stared at the message for a good minute before laughing out loud. Claire never did anything. Without a reason. She wanted in. On my life. On my husband. On whatever fantasy she'd built about the man who'd stood quietly at my side while she drowned in regret. I didn't reply. But I did block her. The funny part, Elijah still didn't know about Daniel. I never told him. Not because I was ashamed, but because he never made me feel like I had to compete. And that was the real revenge, wasn't it? Living a life where Claire didn't matter anymore. Not to me, not to him, but to her. We mattered more than she could handle, and it was eating her alive. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. The kind of day where everything seems normal on the surface, but you can feel the tension bubbling just beneath it. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner, something casual, nothing special. But as soon as Claire walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. There was this weird, forced smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. It was like she was hiding something big, something dangerous. Daniel was acting off too. He kept checking his phone every few minutes, his jaw clenched tighter than I'd ever seen it. I tried to tell myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe he was stressed from work or something. But deep down, my gut twisted into knots. I had this sinking feeling, the kind that tells you something awful is coming and there's no way to stop it. We all sat down for dinner, trying to keep the mood light, but I couldn't stop stealing glances at Claire and Daniel. They exchanged subtle looks, too quick to catch if you weren't paying attention. I told myself to focus on Mom's cooking, but my mind was racing. I barely touched my food. After dinner, Mom asked us to move to the living room. That's when the entire night took a turn I'll never forget. With tears in her eyes, Mom took a deep breath and said, "There's something I need to tell you both. Something I've kept quiet for months." My heart started pounding like a drum. I felt like I was sinking into the couch. She looked at Claire, then at Daniel, and said, "They've been seeing each other behind your back for months." I didn't hear the rest. My world exploded in silence. It was like the ground vanished beneath me. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. I was gasping for air, but it wasn't coming. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I looked at Daniel, hoping against hope that this was some terrible mistake. But his face was stone cold, no remorse, no apology, just blankness. And Claire, she couldn't even look me in the eye. She kept staring at the floor, ashamed, but defiant. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand why, but my voice was stuck somewhere deep inside me. The betrayal was too heavy to process all at once. That night, I cried until my eyes swelled shut, clutching my pillow so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt utterly alone, even though my whole family was around me. The people I thought I could trust the most had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. The days that followed were like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Daniel moved out without a word. Claire disappeared from family gatherings. Mom tried to keep the peace, but the house was filled with cold silence and unspoken anger. I found myself questioning everything. Was I not good enough? Did I miss the signs? How could my own sister do this to me? How could Daniel choose her over me, the person he promised to love forever? I was drowning in heartbreak and confusion. My mind kept replaying every conversation, every smile, every moment, trying to find where it all went wrong. But somewhere in the mess of my pain, a tiny spark of determination flickered to life. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't let this destroy me. I refused to let their betrayal define who I was. So I started to rebuild. I threw myself into my work, spending late nights and early mornings focusing on projects and clients. Work became my escape and my therapy. I worked hard to regain my confidence, which had been shattered along with my trust. Every small victory at work reminded me that I was still capable, still worthy. I started going back to the gym, taking care of my body, and slowly healing my mind. Most importantly, I began to rediscover who I was: independent, strong, and deserving of love. And then, I met Elijah, a man who really saw me not as a broken woman, but as someone beautiful and whole. Elijah didn't care about my past. He didn't bring up Claire or Daniel. He just loved me for who I was. Looking back, that awful day was the worst moment of my life, but it was also the beginning of everything. The moment I realized I deserved better. The moment I stopped being a victim. The moment I chose to fight not against them, but for myself. If you're going through something similar, I want you to know this. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel unfair. You'll have moments where you think you can't go on, but you're stronger than you know. Sometimes, the darkest moments lead to the brightest comebacks. You just have to keep going. Months had passed since the storm finally calmed the emotional hurricane that blew through my life after Claire's betrayal and Daniel's abandonment. Life had started to regain some normalcy, but it was a new normal, one I had to build from the ruins of what I thought was my future. I was convinced I had left Claire and all the bitterness behind me, buried under layers of hard work and healing. But then, out of nowhere, one night, my phone buzzed. It was her, Claire. I didn't answer. Instead, I read the message. "Please, can we talk? I need to understand why you never fought back." Her words lingered in my mind for days. Why didn't I fight back? That question twisted around inside me, tangled with memories and pain I thought I'd put to rest. Back then, when Daniel left me for my own sister, my world crumbled. It wasn't just about losing a fiancé or a family member. It was about losing the life I'd planned, the dreams I'd built. I could have screamed at Claire, begged Daniel to choose me, or dragged my pain out into the open for everyone to see. But I didn't, because I knew deep down, fighting back wouldn't bring me peace. Fighting back would have kept me chained to the hurt, giving them more control over my story. So instead, I chose to rebuild. I rebuilt my career with sweat and tears, nights spent working when I should have been healing. I rebuilt my confidence piece by piece, learning to stand tall again, without anyone else's approval. I rebuilt my heart by finding Elijah, a man who loved me wholly, without conditions or judgment. Claire's message was like a ripple in a pond, unexpected, but it made me stop and reflect. Why didn't I fight back? Because I was busy fighting for myself. Weeks later, I finally replied. I never fought back because I didn't need to. I built a life where your approval doesn't matter anymore. No reply came, just silence, and that silence was louder than any argument we could have had. Revenge isn't always about confrontation or loud accusations. Sometimes, it's quiet. It's about living well with grace, strength, and dignity. At Mom's funeral, when Claire caught sight of Elijah and me, her face froze, not just because she recognized him, but because she realized the truth. She had lost me, she had lost her place in my life, and she had lost the control she thought she held. I didn't try to win Daniel back. I didn't wage war. I simply chose me. And that, my friends, was my greatest victory. If you're watching this, and you feel betrayed, lost, or heartbroken, know this. You don't need to fight to prove yourself. You don't have to battle those who hurt you. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is to live your life fully with joy, peace, and strength. To build a future so bright that the past fades into the background. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've experienced betrayal or heartbreak, please share your story in the comments below. And if you want more real stories of survival, strength, and sweet revenge, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.